Dear listener, before the story begins, I ask you to subscribe to my channel. This is the best motivation at the start. And we are starting. Greetings, everyone. When I discovered that my spouse had taken a lover initially, I was overwhelmed by a kind of fury, followed by apathy. I had to gather myself in order to make resolute and well-considered choices. Anger and indifference could not aid me with that. We had been together for 23 years. During this period, we had a daughter and established a restaurant business. Everything was going smoothly. We had nearly complete harmony in the family, you could say. When I first questioned my wife about her lover, without hesitation, without blushing, and not even getting anxious, she said it was utter nonsense. At first, having discovered that my wife had a man on the side, I was reliving all the years we had lived, searching for something I might have overlooked, something I might have done incorrectly, or conversely, hadn't done. In the end, my wife confessed, albeit a month and a half later. But she confessed. She wept quietly, pleaded for forgiveness, said that she would terminate the relationship and that, besides me, she didn't require anyone else. But how could I trust her if she had been deceiving me for an entire year and a half? I didn't inquire who he was, where they met, and other details. I asked why she didn't end it with him right this minute, to which my wife responded that she needed to inform him about it in person and look him in the eye. Then I asked her what she wanted to see in his eyes, why she didn't want to gaze into mine and see what was in them. My wife did not reply to both questions. Then I asked when she was going to tell her lover that it was all over. She answered swiftly, said tomorrow. I thought, okay, let it be so. I still believed and felt that it would not conclude with one conversation. In the morning, she left to inspect our restaurants, to see if everything was okay there. She promised to return at lunchtime. She came back only the following day, in the evening. From the doorway, she declared that the other relationship was over, that she had spent the night at her friend Emily's until dawn. Emily called me, saying that my wife had a nervous breakdown, and that she herself could not speak, and that in this state, Emily could not let her go, and that my wife would come home tomorrow. Only the friends did not know that I was aware that Jessica had already been 400 kilometers away from our city for the second week, taking care of a sick mother. Another lie. This lie finally destroyed my trust in my wife. I didn't say that I knew about Emily. My wife tried to prepare dinner, but it wasn't working out. Everything was falling out of her hands. In the end, she even spilled salt. I silently observed her actions and remembered. I remembered this kitchen when we bought this apartment. We furnished it with furniture and appliances. I remembered how we cooked together in this kitchen, smiling at each other, saying or discussing something. We always had a common topic for conversation. Now I was absolutely indifferent, and all this action took place in complete silence. We didn't talk to each other until we went to bed. Then my wife wished me good night, and I didn't answer. In the morning, I left to check our stores. I'll make a small digression. When we got married, I had a small grocery store where 20 people could barely fit. My wife had a rented corner with goods in a large shopping center. And so we started with these two little shops. It was difficult. There was not enough money. There were difficulties with purchasing goods. But we learned to solve issues together. What and where to buy, what first, what to put off for later. This joint discussion of plans also moved into the family. We always decided together what and how we would do, where we would go or travel, what we would buy, what we would give to friends, and so on and so forth. We were proud that we could solve almost any problem together. We knew how to listen and understand each other and knew how to solve our problems. We knew how to negotiate without forcing our opinions on each other. Yes, there were mistakes, but we also corrected them together. So we got to the restaurant business. We even thought about inviting a chef from France or Italy, but decided to wait. I came home that day. I drove around the city in the car all night, listening to the radio, remembering the past, the bright past, when our successes brought us joy, when our daughter was born, when we opened the first restaurant, when we surprised each other with gifts, our daughter's wedding, when we spontaneously went to Paris and stayed in France for a week, just didn't leave the room, made love, and couldn't get enough of each other. You say it doesn't happen like that? It does. It was with us. It was as if we were young and everything was for the first time. And now, after 23 years, this. My daughter called and asked where her mother and I were. She and her husband had already arrived. and there was no one at home. Mom wasn't answering the phone for some reason, although it was she who initiated today's family party. I told my daughter and her husband to take the keys from the concierge, come in, and I would go to Mom's work, pick her up, and we would come. My wife wasn't at the restaurant. I called another one, but she wasn't there either, and she didn't even show up today. The store director said that my wife wasn't there today and she didn't call either. I dialed her number, heard, "The subscriber is unavailable." I hung up and didn't try to call again. I went home alone. We celebrated as three, me, my daughter, and her husband. We looked at the family album, recalled all sorts of funny incidents. My daughter kept asking where Mom was. I replied that she had urgent matters. Her phone battery was dead, and most likely she would not be able to come today. I had to lie too. But you won't believe it. Remembering my daughter's childhood and telling her husband funny cases from her life, I forgot a little. Probably because the good is good. My wife came home when the children had already left. To my question whether she wanted to tell what was going on and where she had been, my wife firmly replied that she had been out for work. Why was the phone turned off? She said the battery was dead and she left it at work. Lies. More lies. I asked my wife if she wanted to stop lying and finally tell the truth, but my wife never told the truth. I replied that I would go clean up in the kitchen. She asked in surprise, "Did we have guests?" I say yes. Our daughter and her husband were here, the ones you invited to the family party yourself. I was carrying the family album from the kitchen, and my wife, noticing it, asked me to give it to her, asking at the same time, "Did you look at the family photos?" I say yes, we looked, told our daughter's husband how we met, how we built our lives, the birth of our daughter, and her upbringing growing up, her various pranks and funny incidents. After giving my wife the album, I went back to the kitchen and started cleaning up. Then I went to the living room, turned on the TV. Suddenly the doorbell rang. I went to open it. A man in a suit was at the doorstep. Then my wife came to the door to find out who had come at such a late hour. I saw how she changed in the face and understood everything. The man called her by name. She ran out into the corridor and closed the door behind her. She came back only about 20 minutes later, holding her phone in her hands. I did not react in any way to her appearance. I think she also realized that I knew who this man was. Then there was a month of silence and complete ignoring. My wife lived her own life all this month. I saw that this state of affairs in the family did not oppress her at all, unlike me. Finally, I got tired of it all. One morning I told her that we needed to have a very, very serious talk, that I could no longer live with someone who didn't need me, that her lies had killed everything in me, faith, hope, love. My wife cried, mumbled something like, "I'm sorry." I said that this evening I intend to firmly put all the dots on the I's in our relationship with her. I said it and left. In the evening, I was the first to return home. My wife came back closer to midnight. The first thing she wanted to do was take a shower, saying that she was very tired. The day at work was very hard. You won't believe it, but this lie of hers caused such bitterness and anger in me that I almost started shouting. She wasn't at work. She wasn't. I drove around both our restaurants and all the stores during the day, and yet I restrained myself. I said she didn't need to wash off the smell of another man. I no longer claimed the right to be her man. My wife tried to object that she had broken up with him and that it was all long over, and that she just didn't know what to do to get our relationship back on track at least a little. Then I asked her to tell me where she had been today. Apparently realizing that lying would not work, she was silent. I told her I wanted a divorce, that I was tired of her constant cheating, and that's when she suddenly tried to object that she had broken up with her lover. To my question, how many times had she broken up, the answer was only silence. I replied that she was not ready for a constructive conversation, and we would talk with her tomorrow. For the first time in our entire married life, with my wife at home, I slept alone in the living room on the couch. In the morning, I found my wife in the kitchen with a swollen face and swollen red eyes. It was evident that she had been crying all night. I confess I thought there would be no conversation, but my wife said she was ready for it. Here's what I learned from her story. I learned that her lover was once her household chemicals supplier. He fell in love with her. She had no feelings for him and told him so. He left. She met me and fell in love. And then, about 3 years ago, it suddenly seemed to her that in her early 40s, she was no longer attractive, that men did not pay attention to her, that my attention to her was somehow not right. I was her husband, and she wanted the attention of others, and she began to take my signs of attention for granted, as something mundane and even sometimes not serious. And then, as if by sin, that same former supplier showed up from somewhere. He had matured, become charming, and then, as it later happened, my wife herself does not understand to this day. Of course she understood. She understood everything. She understood that if everything was found out, everything would collapse. She understood, but she hoped that it would not happen. She said that she loves me, that she still loves me and does not know how she will live on without me. But she could not leave her lover either. She does not know what kept her with him all this time. Many times she tried to leave, and it seemed that coming to him to say goodbye would be the last time. But after tonight she is firmly convinced that it's all over, that she only needs me and no one else, that she realized that she loves me and only me, that she will never have anyone better than me, never had and never can. She cried, asked for forgiveness. I was ready to forgive my wife then when she said that she would break off the outside relationship and only needed to see him in person. But when she lied to me, when she deceived me, I realized that I would never be able to trust this woman again. I wanted to know why it was necessary to lie. Why didn't she offer to solve her problems together with me, as we usually did? And what made her break up with her lover that very night? Wasn't it the fear of divorce? And my wife replied that at night she looked through the family album several times. After these words, she had a hysterical fit. She fell at my feet and begged me not to leave her. She said that she was ready to do everything I said and everything I wanted. I took her in my arms and carried her to the bedroom. I put her on the bed. I probably calmed her down for a whole hour, gave her pills, hugged her and held her close to me. But I understood that I was hugging and calming down a woman who was essentially already a stranger to me. I had burned out. My wife finally calmed down, and we returned to this conversation in the evening. I said, "Listen, I can't trust you anymore. I said that we could remain friends and partners, but never a family. And I don't need a weak-willed woman ready to do everything I say without her own opinion, without faith, without her own self." From memory, I recited to her the lines of Omar Khayyam that I had read somewhere. "Drive away the friends who betrayed you once. Who betrayed once will betray you twice. And do not seek love where there is no answer. In love there are two. There are no other plots here." I told her that I see her only in the past, and in the present and future, she is not there. Now we are friends and partners, no more and no less than that. My wife tried to restore the relationship after the divorce, but I refused. My daughter came many times and offered to start all over again. Well, or at least try. I can't. I just can't, and I don't want to.